Hello and welcome to Buffy and the Art of Story. If you love the Buffyverse and you love creating stories or just taking them apart to see how they work, you're in the right place. Today I'm talking about Season 1, Episode 17, Eternity, where Angel is drawn to a popular actress he saves from a stalker, but when she learns his secret, it could be deadly for everyone. I am Lisa M. Lilly, author of the Awakening Supernatural thriller series, the QC Davis Mysteries, and the Writing as a Second Career books for writers. You can find all of those and back episodes of Buffy and the Art of Story, including those that cover Buffy the Vampire Slayer from seasons 1 through 7 at lisalilly.com. That's lisalilly.com. Along with a recap of Eternity, today I'll talk about protagonist questions. Is the actress or Angel or the team the protagonist? What happens when humor depends on breaking a character? How this storyline fits with the Buffyverse lore to date about Angel's soul, and my episode rating on a scale of 0 to 10. As always, there'll be no spoilers for Angel, the series, but I may talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer as a whole from time to time, so if you have not watched all of it, proceed with caution. Okay, let's dive into the Hellmouth, or maybe just Los Angeles. Eternity aired the first time April 4, 2000. It was written by Tracy Stern and directed by Regis Kimball. There is plenty of opening conflict to start it off. There's a close-up of Wesley who says we're doomed. He and Angel debate exit routes, but they conclude they are trapped. The camera pans back and we see they are in a theater. Cordelia is on stage in the classic A Doll's House written by Henrik Ibsen.
One day I might, yes, many years from now, when I've lost my looks a little. Do not laugh.
Only another hour.
I mean, of course a time will come when Torvald is not mine. As devoted to me.
Perhaps two.
What? Is not as devoted. Right. When Torvald is not as devoted to me.
And I thought I knew eternity.
After Angel's line, we go to credits. On return, as they leave the theater, Cordelia asks Angel and Wesley how she was. Wesley talks about how well she projected and says she took the role and made it her own. Angel hedges. He wouldn't say she did a great job if it wasn't true, and she points out he hasn't said it. But lucky for him, Cordelia spots famous talent manager Oliver Simon and more famous actress Rebecca Lowell leaving a building. She exclaims over it, reminds Angel that they were both at a party with Oliver, and that was in the pilot where Cordelia and Angel ran into each other. Angel remembers Oliver gave him his card, which appalls Cordelia, who is trying so hard in acting. And Angel says, well, Oliver said he had a quality. Cordelia is also shocked that Angel doesn't know who Rebecca Lowell is. She was Raven for 9.5 years on TV. Angel, though, is paying attention to a car not too far away with its lights off. It drives toward Rebecca just as she crosses the street. Angel dashes out and pushes the actress out of the way, saving her. They both land on the street in separate places. Rebecca's entourage surrounds her. Cordelia and Wesley go to Angel, and Cordelia says, oh my God, what was she like? Rebecca comes over to thank Angel. Oliver follows, thinking Angel is looking for a reward. Cordelia gushes over Rebecca and explains that Angel doesn't know who she is. That intrigues Rebecca. She is distracted, though, when she realizes E.T. Entertainment Tonight is there, although Wesley thinks she might mean Emma Thompson. And it'll be all over the news. She turns back to apologize to Angel, but he is gone. Cordelia tells Rebecca Angel does that, and she gives her an Angel Investigations card. The next day at the office, Cordelia is thrilled to be in the newspaper. No, not for her play, like a reviewer needs to see a 100-year-old play. Her elbow is in a photo of Rebecca. Angel pretends not to care about publicity, but does seem a little put out when he finds out that he is not mentioned. A couple of different moments there could be seen as the inciting incident or story spark that sets the main plot in motion. Either Angel saving Rebecca, Cordelia handing over the card, which we probably need, or Rebecca wouldn't know where to find Angel, or this moment when Rebecca walks into the office. In Angel's interior office, she observes that the blinds are down and notes that he is not a fan of sunlight and says neither is she. A bit of foreshadowing. She tells him, too, that she's been famous for so long. It's refreshing to meet someone who doesn't know about her show. She invites him to drop by sometime and see the episode where she didn't win the Emmy. But she's there for another reason. She shows him letters she's been getting written in blood from an unhinged fan. Angel tells her right off that it's not blood. She is now getting threatening phone calls, too, and then there was the attack last night. Oliver wants her to contact police, but she doesn't want to. It'll be all over the tabloids. She's up for a make-or-break part to lead a new series, and is worried not only about her own safety, but about the stress and publicity interfering. Angel tells her he already ran the car's license plate. It's a stolen 1976 Chevy Nova. Found that fun because I owned a Nova, as did either my brother or my sister-in-law at some point. Theirs was great. Mine was the worst car I ever had, but it was a 1979. Angel tells her to give her people that information and they'll find the stalker, which doesn't really make sense because if the car was stolen, finding out who the license plate traces to probably is not going to help. But he doesn't want to take the case. He says she doesn't need him. Cordelia is not happy, and after Rebecca leaves, she wants to know what's his deal, passing on her first big chance to connect to Hollywood. Angel doesn't answer, and Wesley tells Cordelia that Angel likes Rebecca and he's afraid of getting too close. They talk about Angel's curse. Cordelia points out he'd have to get very close for that to be triggered. Then she pretends to have a vision of Rebecca in danger. Wesley and Angel don't buy it, and Angel doesn't get why Cordelia's obsessed. Rebecca is just a person. Cordelia responds, spoken like a true non-person. Poolside at her mansion, Rebecca's esthetician waxes Rebecca's face, and they talk about Rebecca considering cosmetic surgery to look younger. That night, Rebecca has a party at her mansion. After everyone leaves, she hears noises. Angel bursts through a glass wall on one side of her as a stalker, wearing a mask and dressed in black, breaks in through another door. The two fight. The stalker manages to knock a bookcase over onto Angel and run off. Rebecca is shaken but okay. She thanks Angel but happens to glance in a mirror and see only herself. The two have a moment and the police bang on the door and we go to commercial. A great hook. We'll find out that Rebecca realizes Angel is a vampire. So that moment between them probably is the first major plot turn. That typically should come from outside the protagonist and spin the story in a new direction, which it definitely does here, because quite a bit is going to grow from Rebecca knowing Angel's a vampire. And it raises the stakes because Angel does not typically share who he is with someone if he doesn't have to. Police swarm the mansion. Oliver is there to reassure Rebecca. He offers to stay, but she tells him she'll be fine. There are plenty of cops who will be camping out outside her house. He leaves to deal with the press. A little bit more foreshadowing. We've had a number of references now to E.T., to the tabloids, and to the press, and Oliver dealing with them. Once she's alone in the house, Rebecca says she knows that Angel is still there. He comes out, and that's when she guesses, based on no reflection, him knowing that wasn't blood on the letters, and his interior office, that he is a vampire. She mentions Gary Oldman and other actors who have played vampires, but Angel is real. He comments that Frank Langella was the only performance he believed. I had to look that up. Frank Langella was the 1979 Dracula in the movie. I remember not liking that version of Dracula, but it did apparently get pretty good reviews. When Rebecca hears Angel is over 200 years old, she can't believe how young he looks. And she asks if he will feel cold if she touches him. She puts her hand to his cheek and says she's felt colder. More chemistry between the two of them. The next morning at the office, Cordelia worries when Wesley tells her Angel was keeping tabs on Rebecca all along. They are taking the case, and he stayed the night at Rebecca's. Cordelia is very concerned, and Wesley's puzzled. Didn't she lobby Angel to take the case? But she asks how early Angel called. Wesley realizes she's thinking of the curse and downplays it, and Cordelia points out he wasn't around the last time Angelus went on a rampage. She was on the front lines. But Wesley argues the curse was because of Buffy. True happiness is rare. So he seems to be saying it wouldn't be just making love with anyone or sex with anyone that would cause Angel to lose his soul. A little bit of foreshadowing for what happens later in the episode, specifically the reference to true happiness. Annie adds, what are the odds Angel would find it with an actress? Cordelia's offended, and then she says she owes it to Rebecca to see if Angel turned and killed Cordelia's last link to fame. She appears at the mansion with coffee and a cross. Angel's a little taken aback at that. But Cordelia's immediately reassured evil Angel would never wear those pants. Rebecca is at lunch. Angel reveals he told Rebecca about being a vampire. Cordelia wonders if Rebecca will still set Cordelia up with her manager. This is a good segue to Rebecca meeting with Oliver. It reminds us who he is. But she is deeply disappointed. She thought the producers of the series would be there, and they're not. And she doesn't have the part. Instead, she has to read for it. Back at her house, Rebecca tells Angel she hasn't had to read for a part in forever, 1.5 seasons off the air, and no one is interested in her. A maid brings in a garment bag. It's a tux for Angel. Rebecca needs a bodyguard for a film premiere. She and Angel step out of a limo onto a red carpet in the next scene. The fans call out to Raven. Under her breath, Rebecca comments to Angel that they think she is the character she plays. The scene cuts to the two of them leaving out the back into an alley. She tells Angel she never stays for the premiere. Her driver knows to meet her by the alley. Angel spots someone lurking and shoves Rebecca aside just as that person fires a gun. Angel and the stalker fight. Angel prevails and the stalker's mask is off. Rebecca stares at his face. Oliver appears. He's very worried. And Rebecca confronts him. How did he know this was going to happen? And she recognized the stalker as a stuntman Oliver used to represent. Plus, only Oliver knows her private number where she was getting the calls. He confesses he thought the publicity might help her land the part, which she now learns she didn't get. She was never in danger. He reassures her of that too and says he did it out of love. Rebecca says she doesn't pay him to love her, and Oliver answers, no, that you get for free. We're over 22 minutes into the episode, so a bit past the midpoint. Usually here we see a major reversal for the protagonist or a major commitment by the protagonist or both. Angel saved Rebecca here, or at least so he thinks, and he revealed the truth to her, so he hasn't had a reversal. And we haven't really seen a commitment by Angel other than earlier he was keeping tabs on Rebecca. But she discovered he was a vampire by chance, so it's not like he dove in and told her the truth. There is a reversal for Rebecca, two of them finding out that Oliver set up the whole stalker incident, which she is not taking well, and that she didn't get the part. And now she and Oliver talk about how the network thought she was too mature. Oliver says at 24, she starts to say she's not 24, presumably that she's older. He tells her keep her voice down, and she says, what does it matter? Raven will always be out there. The series ended with her being 22. She'll always be younger and sweeter than Rebecca. Oliver tells her no one can stay young forever, and Rebecca looks over at Angel, and we cut to a commercial. So this, as it turns out, will be a sort of reversal for Angel because Rebecca gets an idea in that moment. Wesley tells Angel the preliminary forensics came in, and he starts to say the bullets were blanks, but Angel jumps in and says the bullets were blanks. He went back to the scene. There were no bullet holes. He does not think Rebecca knows that. He's concerned about telling her, not sure if she'll be relieved she doesn't have a stalker or upset that no one cares enough to stalk her. Actresses. This segues to two actresses, Rebecca and Cordelia, on a lunch and shopping trip. Cordelia can't stop squealing with excitement, and she laughs with amazement when Rebecca thanks her for making time for her. Rebecca tells Cordelia she is an actress just like her. Cordelia counters that Rebecca is an actress. Cordelia is someone who auditions and auditions and auditions, but Rebecca reassures her that is just how it is at the beginning. She knows she'll be a star. And anyway, who else knows what to buy a 200-year-old vampire as a thank you? Cordelia agrees Angel is impossible to buy for. Rebecca asks how Angel became what he is. Cordelia says it's a long story and squeals again when Rebecca says she has all day. At night, Rebecca comes to Angel's apartment with a bottle of Dom Perignon. She concluded champagne would be the best bet since he has everything he could want. She looks around. The apartment is sort of what she expected and sort of not. Angel jokes that there's no coffin. He becomes awkward when he starts to tell her about the stalker, but she tells him she knows, and Oliver did it to revive her flagging career. It is important that she and Angel have this conversation, but it is the second one in a short while where characters are telling each other things we already know. The earlier one was the ballistics conversation with Wesley, when we knew from Rebecca's conversation that it was all a setup. Both were pretty quick, so they don't affect the pace too much. Angel is sitting on the edge of the sofa arm. Rebecca is on the sofa a little ways away, but she suggests they toast where they link arms and sip champagne. It's kind of corny, but she thinks it would be fun. Angel agrees, so now they are face to face and very close. Rebecca accidentally spills some champagne on him, and when he leaves to change his shirt, she puts powder in his glass and mixes it up. When he comes back, they try again. Her toast is to the end of an ending and the beginning of a beginning. Wesley comes to Cordelia's apartment. She paged him because she's worried about all the questions Rebecca asked, and she thinks she might have done something terrible.
Lunch at Mirabelle, I had the most to die for veal fillet with a light truffle marinade, and yes.
Cordelia.
Sorry. Anyway, the whole time Rebecca's real Gabby asking questions about Angel.
Well, what sorts of questions?
Oh, you know. Where does Angel hail from? What's his favorite color? What kind of aftershave he wears? The exact specific details on how someone could make themselves into a vampire.
Surely you don't think...
What? That she'd try to maneuver Angel into an exchange of bodily fluids in order to make herself eternally young and beautiful, thus saving her failing career? Gee, now that you mention it.
At his apartment, Angel seems a little drunk. He and Rebecca are side by side now on the couch. He says he hurt a lot of people. That's why he has to atone. Rebecca notes that Cordelia said Angel saved the world. He answers that he helped a couple times, but also once almost sucked it into hell. Rebecca, though, thinks he deserves some happiness. She smiles at him, moves closer. Angel tells her this isn't a good idea, but you can tell he is so drawn to her, and he says this feels good when she leans close. She's warm. He misses that. She tells him they can both be happy forever. He can have what he's craving and offers her neck. They won't have to be lonely anymore. My new release, The Desperate Man, the 8th novel in the QC Davis mystery/crime novel series, is now available. And while it can be fun to read the series from beginning to end, you do not need to read it in order. So feel free to check out this book first, even if you haven't dipped into the series before. The Desperate Man. Someone is watching Lauren Hughes. At first, it's just unsettling. Then it's terrifying. Disturbing gifts, escalating threats, a presence that never seems far away. Lauren has always been fearless until now. Lawyer and private investigator Quill C. Davis knows the danger to her best friend is real, even if Lauren tries to downplay it. With suspects ranging from jealous rivals to buried secrets from Lauren's past, Quill must untangle a web of motives before it's too late. But this isn't like Quill's past cases, because this time she's not investigating a murder. She's trying to stop one. And when the stalker makes a deadly move, Quill may already be too late. You can find links at lisalilly.com/desperate. Angel pulls away. They argue. He says she doesn't know the price. All she saw in the mirror was herself, and what she really wants is to disappear. She argues that he's supposed to help people. He grabs her and drags her to his fridge, pulls out blood and squirts it in her mouth and over her face to give her a taste of what she's asking for. She is startled and taken aback, and Angel backs off and asks what she did to him. She admits she put a happy pill in his drink. She just wanted him to be happy. Angel vamps out, bites her, and smiles. He is happy, perfectly happy. That was the last major plot turn. As it should, it arose from the midpoint where Rebecca got the idea that she wanted to be a vampire as she looked at Angel. And it spins the story and exponentially raises the stakes because Angelus is free and extremely dangerous to her and everyone. And to Angel, who never wanted this to happen again. This plot turn is dramatic, but it doesn't quite have the momentum this type of turn normally would, because it is coming from Rebecca's choice, not Angel's. And if Angel is the protagonist, he has been mostly reactive, which generally doesn't make for a great story. You usually want your protagonist to be active, especially from that midpoint on. Later, I will talk about whether Angel is really the protagonist here or not. Rebecca is now really scared. Angelus says she freed him. He smashes his champagne glass. He loves how he feels. Remind him to get the name of her dealer before he kills her. She is now terrified. And he comments he never killed a famous person before. But who's going to believe him? Then he gets an idea. He'll put her head on a pike. He throws Rebecca across the room. She says, "This isn't you." And he scoffs at her and mocks her. "Oh, they mistake me for the character I play." She says she just wants to be like him, and Angelus says, how about this? He'll torture her for a few hours, and she can decide if it's the lifestyle for her. Rebecca grabs a candlestick and clubs him with it. It does take him by surprise, and she manages to get into the elevator and pull that elevator cage shut. When she gets almost up to the top, she screams when someone grabs to pull her out of the elevator, but it's Wesley and Cordelia. Cordelia calls her a slut. Rebecca denies having sex with Angel, but she admits she gave him something. Wesley says, "What did you give him?" Rebecca responds, "Does it matter?" And Cordelia says, "Well, if he's all homicidal, I'm thinking, yeah." She tells him it was Doxamil, which creates perfect happiness. Wesley says it's artificial happiness, not true happiness, so it should wear off and Angel will be back when it does. We're now at the climax of the episode where our opposing forces have their final confrontation and resolve the conflict. All the lights go out. Angelus cut the power and the phones. Wesley tries to reason with Angel. He tells him it's chemical, it's not real bliss. Angelus mocks Wesley. Did he finally grow a pair? Good for him. And he tells him, don't worry, he doesn't have an inferiority complex. He's just inferior, and he throws Wesley across the room. Cordelia now tries, but she stammers. Angel mocks her too, imitating her acting, including calling out line. He tells her she was really bad. She says, "Stop it." And he says, "Why? I've been to hell, and that was worse." Cordelia threatens him with a giant bottle of water. He doesn't believe it. It's just water, not holy water, and says she's bluffing. Her speech, which I'll play in a moment, is really clever because it builds on that cross, or fits with that cross that she brought to Rebecca's mansion.
You think this is just water?
You're bluffing.
Am I? You don't think I wasn't ready for this, do you? That I hadn't prepared for it? Why do you think I have a stake stashed in my desk, a cross in my bag? I think about this happening every single day.
That's just drinking water.
Fresh from a mountain spring delivered right to our door, then blessed every second Tuesday by Father Mackey, the local parish priest, while you're down in the bat cave, sleeping through the better part of the day. You don't believe me? And the Oscar goes to...
As you could probably tell, Cordelia throws the water on Angelus, who cringes, then realizes it was just water. Wesley charges, though, while Angelus is reacting and knocks him down the elevator shaft, which knocks him unconscious. Now we're in the falling action part of the episode where the writers tie up loose ends and sometimes subplots. Angel wakes up chained to his bed. He tells Cordelia and Wesley he's sorry, but Cordelia wants a better line reading on that. She tells him Rebecca is gone and, she won't be keeping him as her bodyguard given that he tried to kill her. Angel says he owes both Cordelia and Wesley an apology, but Wesley tells him things were said, it's best to put it all behind them. He tells Angel he walks a fine line. Wesley doesn't envy him and leaves the room. Cordelia tells him Wesley's right, forget about it, and don't try to weasel out of what he said about her acting. Angelus was evil, but he was honest. Shouldn't she expect the same from the non-evil version of her friends? Angel says, so we're okay then? Cordelia tells him she's too big a person to let something so petty get in the way of their friendship, and she walks off too. Angel says, I appreciate that. You're going to untie me, aren't you? Wesley? Cordelia? Guys? And the episode ends. There are some really great things in the plot here. We have that opening conflict that sets up a lot of personal tension. Angel and Wesley wishing they could leave during that play and then having to deal with her questions about how she was. It sets up the major episode themes too really quickly. Actresses staying young. Cordelia's lines are about the protagonist of the dollhouse fearing what happens when she ages. And they touch on living forever and mention hell. And Angel says, I thought I knew eternity. So we've got a lot of great foreshadowing there. And throughout the episode, we see Oliver constantly going to deal with the press. Rebecca doesn't like the tabloids, but he is not just handling them for her, but we find out courting them. Everything Rebecca tells Angel about the stalker fits with the reveal that Oliver caused it, and her gradual formulating of a plan to stay young fits with what she's seen. First, she gets these hints about Angel, then she sees no reflection, and she is very concerned about staying young, understandably, given the messages she is getting from the network. I do have some questions about the plot, though. Cordelia tells Rebecca all about Angel turning and how you turn into a vampire, but apparently doesn't tell her about Angelus, or at least tell her that Angel is unique and what vampires are really like. It could be partly because she is answering Rebecca's questions, not going into a narrative about Angel. Probably Rebecca did this really skillfully because it doesn't hit Cordelia until later what Rebecca was getting at. It still seems odd, though, that the subject never came up, because you would think Rebecca would be asking about what it's like to live as a vampire, maybe not straight out to tip Cordelia off, but something about don't they have to feed on people. There is a point where she asks Angel if he drinks blood, and he says yes, but not human blood or not people. So maybe she assumes that is a choice vampires can make. In fact, I think he says, I made that choice a long time ago. So it's possible Rebecca thinks that she knows everything she needs to know about being a vampire. In addition, I can imagine Cordelia wouldn't want to stress that Angel could turn into Angelus, because she is hoping Rebecca will keep Angel on as a bodyguard and keep Cordelia's connection to Rebecca. So that's possible too. But having those questions undermines, for me, a bit of the story. And then there's how the curse is handled, but I will get to that in the world building section. A bigger momentum drag on the episode is that challenge of, if Angel's the protagonist, he is reacting pretty much through the entire episode, including when he's turned into Angelus. Angel doesn't have control over that. He doesn't tell Rebecca willingly about being a vampire, and that makes him a less engaging protagonist. It robs the story of some momentum, which makes me wonder, is Rebecca the protagonist here? I look at three things to see who is a protagonist, or if I'm writing to make sure my stories are clear. The first is what character pursues an active goal throughout the story. Rebecca has the most active goal. She is trying to get that part, and she is trying to look younger in order to get parts. We see that with the cosmetic surgery discussion. We see her working out when she's talking to Angel, which also could be just staying in good shape, but it's clearly important to her. Her appearance necessarily is very important to her. And then she concludes she can meet her goals by becoming a vampire, but it's all part of that. Angel, in contrast, is not pursuing any specific goal. He does keep some tabs on Rebecca and intervene to help her, but he's conflicted about it. So I guess we could say he somewhat has a goal. He has a goal of protecting Rebecca, but she is the one from the very start who's actively pursuing something. Who is the main point of view character is the next question, the second prong. And we do get a fair amount of Rebecca for a non-recurring character. We also have a lot of Angel's point of view and a lot of Cordelia's point of view. And a number of the Rebecca scenes are more from Angel's point of view or from Cordelia's. but we do get ones with Rebecca and Oliver. Finally, the third question is who has the most at stake? This is pretty evenly balanced because Rebecca has her life at stake, which is huge. And even before that, she feels her whole career is at stake. But Angel, it turns out, has his soul at stake. Now, we don't know that until the third quarter of the episode, which is also the first time we find out Rebecca's life is at stake from Angelus. But for much of the episode, we thought her life was at stake from that stalker. So that's pretty evenly balanced. Then we have the question of who the antagonist is, because I'm not sure who the protagonist is. It probably weighs a little on the side of Rebecca. The antagonist's main goal is to push against the protagonist. Well, if Rebecca's the protagonist, Angelus becomes the antagonist for the last quarter, but obviously is not for the rest of the episode, other than that he is there always in Angel, posing that unknown threat to her once she decides she wants to get Angel to turn her. Even that wouldn't necessarily trigger Angelus, because she could have just asked Angel to turn her and skip the happy pill, and she would have not been in that danger at all. So for Rebecca, the antagonist is probably aging, or really the industry that she is in that demands that actresses must stay extremely young looking. If Angel is the protagonist, probably the antagonist is Rebecca, but that doesn't obviously become clear till later. At first, we might see it as Rebecca's stalker, but that could work. First Rebecca's stalker, then Rebecca herself. One of the challenges with either of these is that the final confrontation is more between Angelus, Wesley, and Cordelia, not Rebecca, who does have her own confrontation with Angel earlier and still has her life at stake, but is not the main actor in that final confrontation. Before I talk about that more, the mention of Rebecca's career reminded me of another plot question I have, which is she talks about her career like everyone has forgotten her and it's over, and yet she and Angel go to a premiere. It seems to be of a film because she isn't in a series now. Raven is off the air, and plus she mentions she always leaves out the back, which suggests that she has had a number of these. Now maybe the offers are dwindling. It takes time to get a film released, so she might have done this probably when she was still Raven. So maybe there have been no offers until now. It might have been nice to just get a line about that. And there may be a reason why we didn't, and a reason why there is this protagonist question. On the Buffy fandom wiki, there are some quotes there from Angel Season 1, episode by episode with Tim Minear, which seems to have been interviews by Edward Gross, and they cite timminear.net. So the wiki says originally Angel was envisioned as being an anthology. So there would be a client of the week, and that would be the emotional center of each episode. But Tim Minear apparently said that as the first season went on, the writers started to concentrate instead on the emotional interplay between the main characters. And here is a quote that's listed there from Tim Minear. "You can have an interesting plot and an interesting client, but it's difficult to create sympathy for someone you're introducing for one episode." And the wiki notes that Eternity at first shows us the events from Rebecca's point of view, and Minear says if you look at how the episode ended up, it's really about our core people, and by the end of the episode, the client's gone. There's not even a wrap-up scene at the end with the actress. It's all about Angel being chained to the bed and Cordelia not untying him. The wiki continues that in the early versions of the script, the emotional focus was on Rebecca for the whole episode until Joss Whedon decided to add the element of Angel going bad. And Minear said, if that episode had gone before the cameras earlier in the rotation, I think you would have probably seen a different ending, with more emphasis placed on the actress and her problem than on Angel. This makes a lot of sense. It explains why some of my questions about Rebecca don't get answered. Now, we can infer answers, which I gave a few, but if it had been more focused on Rebecca, we might have seen some of that. I'm kind of fascinated that originally Angel wasn't going to turn into Angelus, and I wonder what the big dramatic plot points would have been. I suspect this also accounts for why I'm struggling with who the protagonist is. So I think whether you love this episode or not probably depends on how invested you get in Rebecca. And I'll talk more about that in the character section. For now, though, what is the episode saying? What are its themes? At the beginning of May 6 and 7, I will be in New York at the Craft Fest portion of Thriller Fest. I'm not a speaker there. I am an attendee, and I'll be meeting with a couple agents about Shadow of the Storm, my new supernatural thriller that I am nearly done with. If you happen to be going to Craft Fest or Thriller Fest, please let me know. Maybe we will cross over in some sessions. You can email me at buffystorypod@gmail.com. There is a side drugs are bad theme. I don't know that that was the whole point of it, but that message is there. Surprisingly, there is a little bit less than I would expect about how dosing someone's drink to get them in the mood is really bad. That may be a consequence of this being in the early 2000s, where, as best I can remember, that wasn't taken quite as seriously as it is now, though certainly it was not considered okay. Probably it is more that Rebecca suffers terrible consequences for what she did, and Cordelia and Wesley are outraged. And it's clear from the episode what a huge mistake that was and how wrong it was. There are clear themes about obsessions with youth, the price of living forever, the price of fame. There aren't really any answers. I suppose the theme might be that whatever your profession, you have to grapple with the challenges of it and the difficulties, and some are harder to surmount than others. Figuring out what her career will be and how she can shift it or reshape it is really her biggest challenge. And I wonder about that too. Was that something Rebecca found some resolution on by the end in the early drafts? Ultimately, not really part of theme, but I think it was a good choice to shift the series toward the key characters and their arcs rather than doing a client episode of the week. There can be interesting things in a show like that, but I don't think it would have held up nearly as well as Angel, the series, did. Moving on to characters, Rebecca and Cordelia are foils for one another. They are both actresses. One is at the pinnacle of her career or very near it, fearing that it is ending or she's going into a downward slide. Cordelia is at the beginning and struggling to take off. It's unclear their age difference. We don't know Rebecca's exact age, probably a few years older than 24. We don't know Cordelia's exact age because the show has been making it a bit fuzzy. I'm guessing she is supposed to be early 20s, at least 21. So they are a little far apart in age, but not much. They are also foils in that Rebecca sees only the good parts of being a vampire. She wants to become it, to be young, to live forever. And Cordelia is so aware of the price. As she points out to Wesley, she was on the front lines when Angelus came out last time, and she is dedicated to fighting vampires and demons with Angel. Rebecca is both a sympathetic character and a challenging one. Sympathetic because she is grappling with the realities of her profession, and she has self-awareness. At one point, she says to Angel, when she's talking about having to read for a part, she says something like, "I know, poor little rich girl," because there she is. She has her mansion. She had a series of 7.5 years. She was a star. And a lot of actors, the vast majority, never have that at all. So she is complaining that she's not getting it a second time. And she's aware of that. And it's understandable. She wants to keep working. She wants to keep having that level of success. She seems a little bit conflicted about the fame side of it, and it puts a lot of pressure on her. And I feel for her because at some point, no matter what she does other than become a vampire, she won't be able to stay young looking forever. And she already is not getting parts that she is very qualified for. She is challenging because deciding to become a vampire because she doesn't have another starring role in a series without at least asking more specifics about what it's like to be a vampire makes me see her as either not smart or not caring about other human beings. Now, there are ways to answer that. I do think Rebecca is smart. Everything else in the episode suggests to me that she is. And I don't think she's uncaring. We don't see anything else that suggests that. She reassures Cordelia about her acting. Now, she might be doing it as part of her campaign to be friendly with Cordelia and learn about Angel. She certainly is, but she seems genuine in wanting to reassure her. If we got more of Rebecca, if this was more of her story, we might find out that she did try to ask those questions. As it is, though, I struggle a bit. And some of that is because as a watcher of Buffy, of course, I know the risk of Angelus coming out, and it makes Rebecca seem so reckless, yet she does not know this. And there probably is no reason she would. We also don't know if she is otherwise familiar with vampires. If she is, she could have more reason to believe that it might not be a bad lifestyle, because we've seen that vampires in Los Angeles do take part in regular life. Most of the ones we've seen, I think all of them do kill people, but they're able to control it in a way that someone like Rebecca might not know that. She might reasonably assume that lots of vampires make the choice Angel did to not drink human blood. If that's so, then Rebecca's actions are a lot more reasonable. I struggle a little with Cordelia being so bad in the play because in the last episode, her acting skills were so good as the detective. This might be a result of sometimes episodes are written and are put in different places in the series so that maybe that one where we see Cordelia is better initially would have aired after this one. So I can let that go. Also, it's different to play the role of detective for a few minutes versus act in an entire play. My bigger challenge with that scene, though I really enjoy the humor in it, is that I don't buy that Cordelia wouldn't learn her lines. I can buy that she might not yet be a great actor, but Cordelia is smart. We know that from Buffy. She scored high on the SATs. We have seen how intelligent she is, and she is so motivated. I just don't buy that Cordelia didn't spend a ton of time memorizing her lines. She could stumble. Professional actors sometimes forget their lines and they have to learn to cover for it. And I could buy that she might not be great at covering for it. There's no way I buy that Cordelia doesn't know that calling for a line in the middle of a performance is really bad, and that she then asks, "How was I?" afterwards. There's no way that if she did do that, she wouldn't be distraught afterwards. And that's an example of breaking the character for the joke. It's a good joke. It fits the episode. But it's too bad it is at the expense of being true to Cordelia's character. According to the Buffy fandom wiki, some lines were cut from the scene where Cordelia talks with Wesley and Angel, and these strike me as more in character. Wesley says, "I've always regarded Nora," and that is the protagonist of A Doll's House, "as one of the seminal characters of late 19th, early 20th century literature." Cordelia responds, "Yeah, but I thought I managed to breathe a little life into her anyway. You have to train for a tour de force like this. Lots of water, lots of power walking." Wesley says, "Yes, I don't recall seeing Ibsen's Nora portrayed as a power walker before." Cordelia says, "I brought that to the part. The director was like clueless." That I could see because, well, Cordelia is very smart. And we did see her discussing Shakespeare in Buffy. I could imagine that she might be much more engaged with modern roles and not be as impressed with a classic like A Doll's House. This brings me to world building. I am drawing on how Cordelia was in Buffy for my comments on her character here. So in some ways, this portrayal of her in this episode is not quite consistent with what we saw in Buffy. In fact, the more I think about her conversation about Shakespeare in her high school English classes, the more I am troubled by the idea that she doesn't get the importance of Ibsen as a playwright. On the other hand, she did tend to put Shakespeare characters into her own interpretation, a very modern day interpretation, and make light of them a bit. So that might fit with Nora being a power walker. A much greater inconsistency here is the way the curse is portrayed. It fits that the curse is not about just having sex or just making love. I like that Wesley talks about its true happiness and how rare that is. What doesn't fit for me, or at least is a expansion of or departure from what we saw in Buffy, is this idea that artificial happiness not only could bring Angelus out, but that he would then go away when the drug wore off. I could buy it triggering him because if the drug made Angel feel pure bliss, if it could trigger pure happiness, then Angel would lose his soul. That's what the curse is about. And that would be a question of what are we saying about drugs? What are drugs able to do? The premise here is that it isn't true happiness because it is chemically induced. That gets into a whole issue of, well, it is chemicals in our brain and our body that make us feel happy, sad, etc. But putting that aside, let's accept Wesley's point that it's not true happiness. And I could buy that. This is a mystical curse. So true means genuine, real, and it's not. But if that's the case, then it should not have triggered the curse at all. If he did lose his soul, though, it wouldn't come back when the effect wore off because nothing in the lore suggests that Angelus goes away and the soul comes back as soon as there's no more true happiness. Angelus in Buffy never seems like he is truly happy. He takes joy in torturing people. He has fun at it, but I don't think we could say he has true happiness at any point. So it's not that the soul comes back automatically when the happiness is gone. And it was so hard to get that soul back in Buffy. And maybe that's the bigger thing. It was so difficult. It was such a huge plot issue. And then to have it be, well, it just wears off. That part doesn't work for me. And I understand why they did it. It really tests these relationships, and I like that a lot. And I like that we see that whether or not Cordelia keeps holy water in her desk, although I bet she will now, that she is ready. Both she and Wesley are ready to deal with Angelus, and they manage to do it. Although, now I'm going to take a step back because that's a little challenge with the world building. It's hard to believe that Angelus would be that easy to knock out, given that we saw that even Buffy struggled and Giles struggled. They do take him unaware, though, and there was that moment in the first season of Buffy when she prevailed over Luke, that very powerful vessel of the Master, by fooling him about sunlight. And he cringes and she tells him, sunrise is until however many hours later, and she stakes him. So we've seen powerful vampires cringing away in momentary fear and being caught unawares. So I guess that can fit. And they clearly did not want to have an arc where Angelus was out the whole of the rest of season 1, or they spent all this time trying to get him back. It would have been repetitive of Buffy. We're trying to establish Angel as the hero. I suspect, too, that they did want to show a bit of Angelus, because if you never watched Buffy, you haven't seen Angelus. And this gives a hint of what he's like. He is both physically dangerous and emotionally cruel. And we see he does like to torture. He likes to play with people before he kills them. He isn't just going to go on a killing spree, although he might. It is psychological as well with him. So we do get to see that. And that is important to understand the threat that Angelus poses. I don't know of a better way to show that without making it a whole season arc. And maybe this was the best way. I struggle with it as such a long-time Buffy watcher. It just makes me spend too much time in the episode thinking about whether that could really happen. The other possibility is that Angel did not lose his soul at all, that Angelus wasn't out at all, but the drug tricked Angel into believing that he had become Angelus, almost like a multiple personality scenario where he believes it so much that he acts like Angelus. Wesley, in some ways, is suggesting that when he's saying to Angel, this is chemical. He's clearly trying to speak to Angel, not Angelus, and tell him it's chemical, it's fake. And maybe that is the explanation. It is the one that would make the most sense. And it is a bit scary because if you can trick Angel into becoming Angelus, that would make him much more frightened of himself. Because we don't have that addressed in this episode, I am not sure that that is what the writers thought was going on, but maybe it is. And if so, that would work for me and would make the threat of Angelus appearing even more real. Finally, my episode rating, mostly because I am not quite on board with Rebecca, and because those plot questions really nag at me, and they did the first time I watched, so I don't think this is me just looking too closely, which can happen. If you look too carefully at something, sometimes you spoil it. But for me, all these things, whether I could specifically identify them or not, robbed some of the momentum and some of my interest in the episode when I watched it the first time. So for that reason, I give it a 6. I could definitely see people liking this a lot more than I did. And if you have a different view or the same view, I would love to hear about it. Feel free to comment on YouTube or Patreon or at the Buffy and the Artist Story Facebook page, or to email me at buffystorypod@gmail.com or message me on Patreon with your thoughts. Thank you so much for listening, and a special thank you to those patrons who support the podcast or follow me on Patreon. Next time, we will be doing something different because the next Angel episode is 5 by 5 when Faith crosses over onto Angel. But it is essentially a continuation of the 2 Faith episodes from Buffy season 4. So I will be re-releasing those. Next time will be This Year's Girl, where Buffy is determined to stop Adam, but then she finds out Faith awakened from her coma, bent on revenge. And 2 weeks after that, I will release This Year's Girl, and then I will talk about 5 by 5. If you were listening when I did Buffy season 4, I did talk about the 2 Angel episodes that are coming up as part of the Buffy podcast. I am not going to re-release those episodes, though you can certainly go back and listen to them, because I looked at them from Buffy's perspective, and I'm very curious to see how these 2 episodes strike me, having watched the first 17 episodes of Angel before them. Because of that, I am not going to re-listen to the 2 Buffy episodes. Obviously, I won't be able to totally put Buffy out of my mind, but my goal is as much as possible to do that. So, long way of saying, come back next time for Buffy season 4, episode 15, This Year's Girl. You can find back episodes of Buffy and the Art of Story, as well as the Buffy and the Art of Story books and all my fiction at lisalilly.com. To support the podcast, hear extra bonus content, and get each regular episode a few days early, join the Patreon community at patreon.com/LisaMLilly. Music for this episode was written and performed by Robert Newcastle. Buffy and the Art of Story is a production of Spiny Woman LLC. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved.